Welcome back to True Talk. Hi. If you're just joining us, I'm your host, John Cancio. Today, Psychics Galore. We're having a lot of fun. Next up on the show, we have Corbie Mitleid. Give her a hand. Hey, guys. Before we go to Corbie, I just want to ask, are you guys having fun? Yeah! They're a loud bunch for a small group, aren't they?
That's their exuberant charm. That's wonderful.
Welcome back to the show, Corbie. I've missed you. I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been great to be here.
You've been on many times.
I've been traveling all over. The latest thing, I got to speak at Lilydale. And Lilydale is the oldest spiritualist community in the U.S., one of the most well-known in the world. You get to invited to talk at Lilydale.
Big deal.
It's kind of like getting into Harvard for psychics. Yes,
really?
It is.
Wow.
It was wonderful. I was there with my author, Robert Schwartz, and we talked about your soul's plan, and it was wonderful. The energy there is beyond amazing.
Well, I want to briefly go into your background a little bit.
Okay, sure.
We'll do it quickly. Tell us a little bit about what you do and
Okay.
how you do it.
Okay. I am a certified professional tarot reader, certified psychic, trained medium, ordained minister. I have been doing this since I was 18. I'm 54. The way I started, no seven-generation gypsies, nothing like that. 1973 was when Live and Let Die came out. Remember that? I was a senior in high school. I was working part-time at Spencer Gifts. They had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it. True story. For 20 years, I'd read for friends, and I'd work at keeping my ego out of it so the readings would be very clear. Then all of a sudden, in 1994, with no training, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people. That's when I figured God had handed me my draft notice. So, started doing it in 1994 in public. 9/11, I looked at my husband and I said, I am going to need to do this full-time. People will need it. And he said, what's on the inside of your wedding ring? You go ahead. I'll back you. And in the inside of my wedding ring from him is, I believe in you. So now, I work 6 days a week. I read between 1,500 and 2,000 people a year. I'm working with books, and man, do I have a life I love? You bet. So, short story.
How long have you been successfully married?
We're coming up on 7 years.
7 years?
7 years.
Okay.
And this man is my hero because you were looking at a 3-time breast cancer dancer, kids. And 1 year after we got married was my most serious bout. And this was not a man who ran away. This is my hero because he said, I married you better, worse, sickness and health. And we are more in love than ever because we understand what's marriage? A 60-60 proposition. Each one goes a little more than halfway, and that extra 10% locks it. That's my reverend thing for today. We'll get back to the readings now.
Let's talk about what does reverend mean to you?
All right. I am reverend through the Order of Melchizedek, the Sanctuary of the Beloved, which is a non-denominational group in New York. What it enables me to do, number one, for legal reasons, it means I can do spiritual counseling, and in very picky states, it's a safety blanket. But the reason that I did it is I believe that people should have access to sacred ceremony no matter what they believe, no matter whether they fit a church's idea of what you should believe. So if 2 of my same-gendered friends want a commitment ceremony, you bet I'll do it. If somebody wants a ceremony for the dog that has saved their child's life but died in the attempt, yes, I'll do it. Sacred ceremony is something that is precious, and everyone should have access, not only if they're a card-carrying member of, St. Plaid of the Tartan or something. So that's how I see it.
I love you, Corbie. Now, you have some cards with you today, and I understand you're going to invite somebody from the audience to come up with you, and you are going to teach us. What are we doing? We're learning how to read these?
The workshop I normally teach is called Deck-A-Dance, and it's how to design your own spreads for non-traditional decks. I mean, here is your typical tarot deck. Y'all know what this is. This is what they always show in the bad movies, in Law and Order, Milwaukee, or whatever. And There are so many books and workshops and teachers that have taught about these 78 cards of wisdom. But because intuitive abilities have really rocketed in the public eye over the past 20 or 30 years, there are so many different decks. Everybody says, well, this is my vision of how I can reach spirit, how I can reach the divine. So here are some examples. This is one of the very first decks that I ever got. This is Doreen Virtue's Angels. And a lot of people are very, very comfortable with the idea of angels. So it's a deck with angels that talk about different things. Now this one, for instance, says surrender and release. Look at the picture. Water in most divinatory decks always talks about the flow of emotions. She's carrying an urn that's letting the water out. When we get rid of the emotion, what's above her? The light comes in. The enlightenment comes in. So this is all about the big let go. When you get rid of the things that emotionally block you, you get your enlightenment. It's one example of the card. Let's see.
These are all different decks.
All different decks.
Okay.
Because...
Can you use them all at once? Or?
Oh, yeah. I will very often. I don't have a lot of set spreads I do for a couple of subjects, but very often a deck will go, me, I want to play, and I want to play over here, and I'll just grab them and start running them out. Because that's, remember, I keep saying I'm the garden hose because Spirit is saying they need this deck, and they need this number of cards. Okay. This is what we'll explain. Now, some people say, you can't be a real psychic if you need cards. Not true, and I'll explain why. The Fool card can mean a lot of things in tarot, but the way I interpret it for you may have different meanings. Here's your allegories. Carrying a white rose and a little bitty hobo bag and a dog. If you follow what you are passionate about, carrying very little old baggage, and we all know what that means, and telling only those who are loyal what you're doing, you'll be able to cross mountains. So that's why I explained the fool doesn't mean the stupid person. It means the innocent, the one who isn't aware he can't do it. So
be naive.
Exactly. Not necessarily naive, but trusting.
Okay. Which is sort of naive, isn't it?
Naive is like nothing there. Trusting, trust me. I'm not naive, but I do a lot of trusting because I know I can make the leap. There's a card in the tarot deck that is the Three of Pentacles. You've got a big stained glass window and 3 coins in it and a guy tapping at it. It's a mastery card. But there have been people, I've looked at that card and I've looked at them and I say, I have no idea why I'm saying it, but there is a deconsecrated or abandoned church where you need to open up that cafe bakery. The 2 people I was reading for looked at each other, looked at me and said, we've been passing one for 2 years and talking about it. And I went, duh. So that's an example. They're doorways. They don't always have set meanings. It's why in the other decks, I tell you, don't even read what the originator said, because for you they may have a different meaning. And that's the key. If you use them as a doorway, if you don't left brain it to death, let your ego get in the way, am I going to say the right thing or not? Then the right brain, the intuitive, flows through, and you are going to amaze yourself at what you can do.
Okay. So how are you going to show us how to do this?
All right.
Who wants to? Or you choose. Go ahead.
Okay.
Your way.
This one had big eyes and her hand up first. That wins.
Okay. Big eyes. Go. Okay.
Okay.
And she fits so perfectly next to you, doesn't she?
She does.
I guess I'll come up here since I have the microphone.
All right, Skinny. Remind me of your name, Skinny Thing.
Skinny Thing. Claudette.
All right, Miss Claudette.
Claudette.
Now, is there a particular deck that you like the pictures of? And we'll work with whatever you want to work with. This one? Mm-hmm. Now she has picked the fairy deck. Now this is Brian Froud. Anybody here ever know the Good Fairies, Bad Fairies book? Or if you remember the Labyrinth or the Dark Crystal movies way back then, the puppetry was done by Brian Froud and his wife Wendy. So these are not your ootsy-cutesy fairies in this fairy deck. They're the ones who kind of march inside your head and rip up the floor tiles and give you homework. So she picked the tough one. Now, that's all right. You always pick the perfect